Ready to lead by example in strengthening national unity, President Tinubu assures as he attends Pope Leo XIV inaugural Mass.
It's consistent in the true sense of unity in diversity.
Nigeria Customs Service intercepts contrabands worth 1.5 billion naira.
4 suspects were arrested in connection with the various seizures.
Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives urges JAMB to immediately carry out an independent audit of its entire examination infrastructure.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine sustaining downward trend in inflation.
The National Bureau of Statistics disclosed in its Consumer Price Index report that Nigeria's inflation eased by 0.52%, point to 23.71% in April 2025 from 24.23% in March.
Yes, and the report further states that the food index declined by 0.53%. Points to 21.26% in April from 22.79% in March due to drop in prices of some food commodities.
Precisely, Jumai. On food inflation's NBS CPI report states that food inflation rate in April 2025 was 21.26% on a year-on-year basis.
And of course, that translates to 19.27% points lower compared to the rate recorded in April 2024, which was 40.53%. That's a real downward trend.
Indeed. The significant decline in food annual inflation figure is technically due to the change in the base year. However, on a month-on-month basis, the food inflation rate in April 2025 was 2.06%, down by 0.12%, compared to March 2025, which was 2.18%.
Anyway, the decrease can be attributed to the rate of decrease in the average prices of maize, flour, wheat, grain, rice, and brown beans, amongst others.
However, the report has it that food inflation was highest in Benue, Ekiti, and Yobe, while Ebonyi, Kano, and Ogun states recorded decline in food inflation on month-on-month basis. I am Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, the first this week.
And I join my colleague to wish you a very good working week. I am Juma Yusuf. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Shortly, we'll join Stella Inamati for the morning news. But later on, newspaper review will be coming up. Now, let's join Stella. Stella, good morning.
Good morning, Jume and Adomola. Here is the morning news. Demonstrating with practical example, President Bola Tinubu says his administration will continue to strengthen the bond of national unity, regardless of religious differences in Nigeria. This was the special message of the president as he attended the inaugural Mass of Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican.
It's consistent in the true sense of unity in diversity, and I'm greatly honored. We have to continue to work on it. It's a work in progress for the sake of our country.
Meanwhile, the leader of the Catholic community in Nigeria has expressed appreciation to President Bola Tinubu for his support to the denomination through the period of burial rites for the immediate past Pope and the inauguration of the new one. President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, Archbishop Lucius Ugoji of Owerri, led others on an appreciative visit to President Tinubu in Rome.
the millions of people who are of the Catholic faith in Nigeria by attending this Mass, being himself a Muslim. This has also shown his commitment to the advancement of peace, not just in the African region, but globally also.
What the president has shown is that he's a man who's tolerant of all religions.
And back here in Nigeria, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, has urged the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, to immediately carry out an independent audit of its entire examination infrastructure to ascertain the degree of technical failures that affected the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. Addressing National Assembly correspondents on the issue, the Deputy Speaker says JAMB must protect the integrity of national examinations through real-time monitoring mechanisms to prevent recurrence of the technical glitches that affected more than 380,000 candidates in centers across the Southeast geopolitical zone and Lagos.
Failures are not further disadvantage. JAMB must provide a clear, accessible mechanism for remark and appeal, especially for those dissatisfied with the hurried receipt or who experienced technical difficulties once more during the second sitting. The integrity of our national examination must never be compromised by technical lapses or human error.
Stakeholders of the All Progressives Congress APC from the Northwest Zone have endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the 2027 presidential ticket. This was during a high-level meeting with the state governors, federal lawmakers, ministers and other party leaders from the zone. The stakeholders passed a vote of confidence in President Tinubu's leadership style, reaffirming their collective commitment to supporting his continuity in office.
Consolidate our legislative days and engage new constituencies, especially youth and women. You could not go to some areas before now, but now you could go to some areas, you could travel from Abuja to Kaduna. This was quite impossible before he came to power. Here we are celebrating 12 ministers, which is unprecedented in the history of the Northwest. Continue to be visible, and we continue to work stronger and stronger.
1.5 billion naira worth of contraband have been intercepted by the Nigeria Customs Service Federal Operations Unit, Zone A. The controller, Mohammed Shoaibu, says the unit is strengthening intelligence gathering and interagency collaboration to tackle economic sabotage for improved revenue generation.
Notable seizures include 4,085 bags of foreign parboiled rice, 15 illegally imported foreign used vehicles, 82 packs of tramadol and 10 sachets per pack, 246 kilograms of cannabis sativa, 290 jerrycans of premium motor spirit, then 4 sacks of used clothing. 4 suspects were arrested in connection with the various seizures.
And those are the news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Adamola and Jumai after this time out.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary health care center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Afambo Geneka, Ebim Nagara Dimawa Village, Abuja, Nazo Afeba. So Esom Nandi register na NSR government register with my NIN. So government we use ATM card. Mji we worth 25,000 naira 3 times. And ega haya mketa barumuru na dem eji megoro makamihe. Jikweru mehendozo. Thank you.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
So why do you need Dettol 12-hour protective shield?
Why? Come, let me show you. From my husband's germ-filled journey to work, to his daily interaction, touching where everyone has touched, and the sweaty journey back home. What else can give you all day long protection?
Germs are everywhere, but Dettol's 12-hour protective shield shields your family every day,
keeping them safe, healthy, happy, and successful.
Dettol, be 100% sure.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze. ruffle or write on the naira. Handling the naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the naira. Love the naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the naira.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's now time for newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer is here, Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja. How market?
Well, we are doing well, my dear, knowing that we're now staring down at people who are struggling for top 5 positions.
That is what he's trying to ask you. How is the market?
Now. Yes, we're now looking down at them, seeing how they will fare. Jumai, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
I know you greet me earnestly, not cynically.
Well, on that note,
good to see you guys.
Let's go. Good to see you this morning. Let's go to the papers,
here.
And we begin with the Business Nigeria. Above the masthead, fuel prices, rice prices to fall soon as BOA battles hoarders. You find the details on page 2. Ungote Refinery, NLC clash over Katsina laborers, ethnic tensions looms. You find the details on page 12. And at the head, just below the masthead, Enugu, Kebbi, Niger top Nigeria's most expensive states. That's coming from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS. And the headlines in the Business Nigeria: FAC, 33 states repay 1.85 trillion naira debt from oil gains. Wow, that's a good one. And you find it all on page 2. CBN may hold rate at 27.5% despite easing inflation. And frustration grows as CNG promise fails to deliver. 95% of BDCs face shutdown as CBN deadline nears. Analysts call for term limits for lawmakers. And the picture story you see there, President Bola Tinubu, alongside other world leaders, attend the installation mass and inauguration of Pope Leo XIV in Rome on Sunday. That's about what we have in the Business Daily this morning. Let's quickly go to the Daily Times newspaper. And above the masthead in the Daily Times newspaper, kidnappers kill Ondo APC ward chairman after collecting 5 million naira ransom. And below the masthead, 80-year-old ex-convict, 82-year-old grandma arrested as NDLEA intercept 3.2 billion naira opioids. Go to page 2 to find out the story. And Benue professional asks Governor Alia DSS military to end killings. Find the details on page 9. Traffickers peddling drugs through Kaduna, Katsina to Niger say says police. Traffickers peddling drugs through Kaduna, Katsina to Niger State, say police. Tinubu, Peter Obi, Fayemi share light moment at Vatican during Pope's installation mass. You can see it in the picture story there, the smiles on their face. No politics in the purple ground. Find details on page 2. Then that's about an ICPC to Naseni. Innovative technology critical in fight against corruption. You find the details on page 7. That's about the papers I have this morning.
Okay, I have the this Nigeria newspaper with me, and just beside the nameplate, we have World Bank account for missing 500 billion Serap tells NNPCL. Details on page 14. Tenants groan as rents in cities continue to soar. Increased by 60% in 2025. Agents' agreement fees add to cost. State tenancy laws gather dust. Landlords catch in on high cost of building materials. Then we have the Pope Leo XIV's inauguration. Nigeria's unity in diversity work in progress. President Tinubu also meets with Obi Fayemi at the Vatican. Details of that story can be found on page 5. 2027, no opposition can stop Tinubu by Wike, says Field, not with Fubara, but those who are instigating governor. Details on page 6. And the front page picture shows President Tinubu exchanging pleasantries with Pope Leo XIV at the installation mass for the Pope in Rome yesterday. Chooks.
Thank you, my dear Demola. Let me save this one for last. That's the tenants groan. 80-year-old ex-convict, 82-year-old grandma arrested as NDLEA intercepts 3.2 billion naira worth of what? Opioids. What was that? 82?
82.
They need opioids to make their coffins or whatever?
I don't know.
Were they?
Mr. Demola was saying when they are now inching closer to their grave, they are still trying to destroy young lives through drugs.
You know, sometimes I feel that many minds in Nigeria need to be reconstructed so that you can save them from themselves.
Are you sure that the 80-year-old woman was responsible, or the woman was just used?
Used.
Maybe
they were not aware of it?
Maybe she was not aware of it.
Maybe it's a story in process.
Yes,
because
I don't
believe. Thank you. You've come to what
because
had us perplexed.
Yes,
you just can't make sense of it.
Maybe somebody stocked it in a baggage.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
You know, thinking that because she's an elderly woman, they will not bother to search her and all that.
Yes,
anybody can.
It's okay.
But the 80-year-old ex-convict, well, I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, rice prices to fall soon as Bua battles hoarders. Well, I want to say that rice price has gone down a bit already. It has. I went to a man I want to
in the market, right?
Help me with farming. Yeah. I mean, the Red Bull or whatever you call it, Big Bull or, you know.
The restaurant has
it got to 110 at a point. We don't eat at restaurants. Look, Ban Aman, can we engage in this analysis? 110 for that one, that time is 84 when I price it 3.
Oh.
So it's already coming down. And somebody I want to help me with farming, he said, why are you wasting your time on maize and all that? Go to cucumber, go to watermelon. Trailers will be waiting for you as you plant them. You know. He says this bag of maize, this time last year was 100,000. It is 40 now. He analyzed it. So the truth is that prices of food items are coming down. But the money in people's pockets are still not enough to purchase. It's the purchasing power that is the big problem now. So even if those prices are coming down, it's still not within range of your pocket. We need to put this in proper perspective. Say the way it is. Let's work more to get things better for us. No opposition can stop Tinubu, Wike says. Now, we can't stop politicians from talking about an upcoming elections, but I still insist that they spare us the distraction from governance. It is very important.
Yes.
You know, when people talk about Wike, I'm old school. What I still ask about Wike is, what is this brouhaha about Wike? On what platform is he garnering all that attention in River State? Is he elected or something? I ask as a journalist. I love the man. He's a roadmaster. He's doing a lot here. But I'm telling you the kind of questions I would ask him if I was part of that panel. On what platform are you causing all this for Rivers? Elected person or what? Are the journalists encouraging godfatherism in a way by keeping that talk going on? We need to calm down on what we need to say about journalists. I have nothing against Wike. He's a wonderful man. But I'm telling you how a journalist thinks. We'll hold you responsible for attracting attention we don't think should go to you. Because I'm going to ask you, you're not in government house. You are not a lawmaker. You're not. So that's how a journalist asks questions. He doesn't let you run away. You know? Let me not get annoyed this morning, okay? I have nothing against Wike. I love him. He's the roadmaster.
He is.
May God keep on helping him do what he's doing. FCT is changing. But I'm talking like a journalist. Okay? Tenants grown as rents in cities continue to soar. Increased by 60%. Demola, I hope
something needs to be done.
I hope you're not doing something you shouldn't do to your trousers. It will get better. Because this rent cannot be handled by salaries, my dear Demola. You know? But let's say this. My MBA course was not quite, finished properly. Let me not confess on the air. But I got to a point where we were told by Professor Anao, or was it, I can't remember who now. He said, you get to a point when you price yourself out of your market. When people can no longer afford it, we leave it for you.
Yes.
So you have to balance it up. Building materials prices are going up, we agree and all that, but you still have to consider whether people have money to pay the rent. So we still need to reach a synergy with the people who are house owners.
That's why when you drive around Abuja, you will see a lot of estates that are empty.
Empty. And Demola, I want to tell you something. I'm not of the EFCC, I'm not DSS, but I can tell you that many of those houses you see were not built with money that came as bank loans. Otherwise, they'll rush to put in tenants there so they can service their loans. You get it? So if I were the FCT minister, for instance, I'm going to make sure that I get you to pay for that empty house that is sitting idly there. Government must get money from you. It's very important.
It is.
These are things we have to put in proper perspective to grow as a nation.
Because why build a house and leave it empty?
What's the meaning of that? It means the money that built that house did not come from, yes.
This can only happen in
You
Nigeria.
can't take a bank loan, build a house, tenants are not getting into it because you're saying one room is 2 million and you don't do anything about it. It's not a bank loan that built the house. So I don't know why things happen the way they happened here. Abroad, people will say, follow the money and you'll get to know what built what. You understand? 1 trillion naira debts paid by some states.
No, let's talk about this.
What is that?
Tinubu in Rome.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so proud. Look at the neat cut. That must be, what is it? Something on Spencer, London suits and all that. They bought me that one once. He was so neat in it. He was so neat in it, and I liked it. And again, the expression. In a country where you have religious zealots across all the faiths, you like it when a president crosses from his faith and makes a public, it is very important, and it should go as a message
public
to
identification.
Nigerians. When we were screaming a Muslim ticket, blah, blah, blah. How has Muslim ticket played against Nigerians now? Sometimes Tinubu is not going there to show you he's a Muslim or he's a Christian. He's not that kind of person.
He's a Nigerian.
Give it to him. Give it to him. You don't have to like him to say the truth about it.
And look at the smiles on their face, you know, Fayemi, Obi, and the president just smiling away. There's no politics on the purple ground.
Who was it that said walked him to...
There's no politics on the purple ground.
And they asked a question and Tinubu was ready, so witty. You know, one good thing about politicians is that it's Chukwudi, Demola, and Jumai that are here fighting. They know how to talk to themselves.
Yes, they have their language.
Those people.
They understand themselves.
Never understand
them.
They
understand themselves.
So that's, I liked it when I saw the president.
I wish we can understand ourselves
it's
too.
Great. It's great. It's great. We have a broad-minded president, come to think of it. Please, when he's not doing certain things right, we should also, in a very respectful manner, say that this should be corrected.
The beauty of it all is...
He did well so much in Rome.
He listens.
Of course, Tinubu, you know, when Wike says Tinubu has no position in 2027, because we're journalists, we don't want to join issues. But the truth is that Tinubu is the grandmaster. He's not going to give you a punch. But by the time he finishes, you'll find out that you're not in too much of a mood to fight. Give it to him. Just give it to him. But at the end of the day, we want good governance from politicians. Yes.
Because he alone cannot do it.
He cannot do it alone.
All hands, all stakeholders must be on
I like
deck
the way we're hearing
that
that some debts are being paid and all that.
Daniel
Buana said the other time, he was trying to talk about the floating of the foreign exchange and the removal of subsidy. He said about 27 states could not survive. It was money we got from there that is now floating those states that are no longer bankrupt. I've not checked it out, but at least he said it. If it is true, then something is happening. It's just that Nigerians want things to happen faster because we're really in a bad way.
Exactly.
Chooks,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's thanking me out. It's no longer good, thank you.
Bye-bye, Chooks.
Bye-bye, guys.
All right, we'll take a break now. The conversation will kick off when we come back. Stay with us.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we swear in colors, with undying demand, we bet solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during internment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
At NTA Television College JOS, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer management.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
I want to play!
Survey says. If my phone rings at 2 a.m., it's probably
My mom.
an emergency. Landlord.
Achaluko. I will give you 1.5 million. After you smile finish, I will add extra 1.5 million just for you to move around. I will not add extra 2 million naira. Just for you to call me Odogu.
Family Feud Nigeria Season 3 is officially live.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on sustaining downward trend in inflation, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
The National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) recently released inflation data showing a downward trend. According to the April 2025 Consumer Price Index report, the headline inflation rate eased to 23.71% from 24.23% in March 2025, representing a 0.52% decrease. Analysts say this downward trend is notable, especially considering the year-on-year basis, where the headline inflation rate was 9.99% lower than the rate recorded in April 2024, talking about 33.69%. Key highlights, according to experts, for month-on-month inflation rate indicates that the headline inflation rate in April 2025 was 1.86%, which is 2.04% lower than the rate recorded in March 2025 at 13.90%. And for year-on-year inflation rate, the headline inflation rate decreased in April 2025 compared to the same month in the preceding year, April 2024. Meanwhile, the consumer price index rose to 119.52 in April 2025, reflecting a 2.18 increase from the preceding month. Sustaining the downward trend is now the way to go, according to many. To maintain this downward trend, the government and monetary authorities may consider monetary policy adjustments, fiscal policy measures, and supply-side policies. Experts believe that it's essential to monitor future inflation reports to determine if this trend continues and assess the effectiveness of any policies implemented. Let's now join our guests in the studio to further analyze the success story and efforts to be put in place towards sustaining it. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA.
Thank you, Timothy Yusuf, for the background report on sustaining downward trend in inflation. Now, seated in the studio this morning for our conversation is Dr. Ayo Anthony, Head, Prices Division, National Bureau of Statistics. Good morning.
Thank you for
Good to see you again. He's a
happy
regular.
to be here. Thank you.
And also here is Dr. Emeka Okengo. He's a development economist, a regular too on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
Also joining us from our Kaduna studio is Professor Yushao Ango. He's the Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Kaduna State University. Prof, good morning and welcome to the conversation this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you. Now let's kickstart this conversation with Dr. Ayo, because as I was coming to the studio this morning, because normally my friends, they will ask me, Oga, they go studio again? I said yes. So what are you talking about today? I said it's inflation. I said, waiting to inflation, it don't go down. So because they don't understand when we talk about downward trend in inflation. So you will probably need to explain when you say there is a downward trend in inflation. And besides that, what inspired the Bureau, to come up with this report in less than 3 months in view of his year that it took to launch the preceding report?
It's okay. Thank you. Once again, I appreciate the NTA for inviting MBS to come and make some clarification. Now, one of the reasons why I honor this invitation is this issue you have just asked me now, and I'm happy to give a clarification. When MBS, or anytime MBS releases inflation rate, and the inflation figure reduces compared to preceding months, that does not mean prices of goods and services are coming down.
Because that is what the guy was asking.
Now, if you look at the report, I wasn't happy when I was looking at your report. That's what we call Consumer Price Index. The index of March was 117, approximately. That of April was 119, meaning that was 2 basis point increase. Now, what is the meaning of that 2 basis point increase? It means on the average, prices of goods and services are still going up by about 200 basis point percentage. That's the meaning. So meaning that average price of goods and services are not coming down. Assuming the CPI of this month is less than preceding month, you will say average, I choose my word average prices of goods and services will be reported declining. Now, what is Consumer Price Index? It's an index that measures changes in prices. And when we say prices, not just one price of an item. If the price of rice comes down, that does not mean inflation in the economy is coming down. because inflation is a macroeconomic variable that means persistent increase in general price level. And if it's the opposite, deflation, persistent decrease in general price. That persistent means not just a period, over time. General does not mean a single item, all goods and services. Now, what we reported in April, we said that inflation reduced from 24.23 and from 23 in March to 23.71 in April. What does this mean? It means that the rate at which prices are increasing or were increasing in April was less than the rate they were increasing in March. That is the meaning. So anytime you see a decline in inflation rate, that does not mean general price level are coming down. Yes, some are coming down, some are going up. That's what we call average. When you are collecting prices every month, you will observe some prices are coming down, some are going up. The ones that are coming down are negative change. The ones that are going up are what? Positive change. When you aggregate all the positive and negative, if at the end the average become positive, that means averagely on the average level, prices are what? Going up. When you aggregate the positive and the negative, and the index is what? Negative, it means on the average, prices are what? Coming down. So that is the meaning of declining inflation rate. That does not mean, like I listened to many reports within the week, some station went to market. How much is Gary? They say Gary is still higher than last month. How much is Yam? Yam is higher than last month. In MBS, where do you get your figure from? I was just laughing where I sat down.
So what are the main drivers?
Okay.
Please explain to us, break it down to my level so that I understand it too.
Okay. The main driver of the decline.
Yes.
Now, mind you, I said decline does not mean average prices are coming down. The rate at which they increase in April was less than the rate at which they were increasing in March. Okay. Now, what led, or what are the factors that were responsible for the declining in the increased rate of prices? Now, that's what I call weight. I've said it the last time I came here. Weight means relative expenditure. The value people place on item. In Nigeria, because of our income level, many households spend almost more than 50% of their income on food. Yes. So meaning that whatever happened to food has a greater multiplier effect on the consumer price index. So if you look at our report, it's mainly food items that the rate at which they were increasing in April was fully less than the rates of increment in March. Like rice, like beans, like corn flour, and many others in the report.
Okay, Dr. Emeka, thank you, Dr. Ayo, for at least giving us a better clarification there and giving us a better understanding of what you mean by a downward trend in inflation. Let's bring Dr. Emeka Okungud into this conversation. From your assessment, does this report reflect the true inflation decline, especially, just like you said, and people are saying in food commodities?
Okay, maybe I should just leave out with the technical details. And then let's look at the facts as they are in themselves. We're just talking about only one thing here. Okay, products, supply, demand. That's what it is. Okay, if you sum up everything that Dr. Ayo has said, is about three things. One, availability and sustainability. Okay, that now drives pricing and demand against supply. So that's what this is all about. So if you're going to be looking at inflation, and that's when you ask the drivers, okay, one of them could be like everybody's reporting now, okay, India has pushed down the prices of rice. There is post-harvest maize and all that coming out. These are just two products, but they are very major. Now, the allied ones are the ones that are equally as important. Okay, your tomatoes, your peppers, your whatever that makes up this, your food, basket and food budget. So for me, we can talk about the science of inflation and then get either educated or more confused as we're getting educated, with Dr. Ayo's explanation. It's all about the science Okay, it's all about the technicalities or technicalities of being able to now aggregate, okay, your expenditure pattern vis-a-vis your demand and supplies.
Okay.
So I would rather, as probably a development person, focus on those things that can be able to stabilize it. And this will now be for us to not look at this as season, based production, because every time you have these drivers, okay, they are usually where you have, a lot of goods coming into the market. And then after some time, it gets off season. So I think the greater challenge we have as a country is that we are fixed on this season, and we should be able to move away from season and then start approaching cycle. Now, what does this mean? It means that we should be able to have a system that makes it possible if our national demand for rice, for instance, is 100,000 tons. In off and on season, it must remain at 100,000 tons. Okay, so it is no longer now depending on farming to be able to produce the rice. It is now depending on technology to be able to, sustain that production. And then what does technology mean? Either you are producing more than you need for that season, and then you're now having storage like every other person does. I can tell you, most people who export rice won't export rice that is any day, maybe younger than 10 years. Some of them store this in as much as 5-6 years. And then they now have what they call their national strategic reserves.
Okay.
And it is against these reserves now, these volumes, that you now begin to now empty those silos for new ones to be able to come in. So that's what I'm saying to you, that what we're talking about here, for me, we can cut inflation, food inflation, at 0.1%. If in January you can buy a tuber of yam for 300 naira, and in May, which you're not farming, you're going back to the farm, you can buy it at 300 naira. And in December, you can buy it at 300 naira. There won't be any need for any price, differences. That's one. Two, household incomes. Okay, now, if you're also looking at what now drives what it is we're talking about, yes, we've talked about food, but food is no longer the king. Okay, it's no longer that goblin monster. You also now have energy costs. And if I'm talking about energy costs, you now have two broad kinds of energy costs. Now, your fuel costs, and then your electricity costs. Now, these are huge, and they're eating into, what you might call that household income that Dr. Ayo had rightly said that over 50% is spent on food. But if you do a proper aggregation now, you might be shocked that just these two things will take 60% of your household income. So you are now also left with less than 30% to begin to now chase, products and goods that prices keep jumping at every point. So in looking at it from the back end, my view will be, we can't keep discussing inflation rising and inflation, falling. We should be able to say productivity rising and productivity being sustained. And against that, we can now begin to talk about the CPI and then aggregating it against, household incomes.
So trying to find stability, that's what you're trying to say now.
Sustainability, not stability.
Sustainability.
Sustain it.
Yeah, it's not stability, it's sustainability. And in creating sustainability, you must be able to have a clear understanding of needs. Okay, there has to be a very clear understanding, but that's not the role of the MBS. Okay, it's for the country to be able to have what we call a national compendium of its needs. How many tons of rice do we consume on a daily basis? Just like we've been able to get at one time that we're consuming 49 million liters of fuel on a daily basis. We should be able to know this is what we need: beans, rice, salt, this, that. And against that, now begin to build your volume. And it is against those volumes you now begin to build your strategic reserves. So at every point in time, I remember one time the president had ordered for some grains, I think 50,000 bags of grains or something, or tons of grains to be released. And then there was this, where are these grains? Are they really there to be released? Okay? Now, this is how you are able to create and sustain, the sustainability that I'm talking about.
Quite interesting. diverse views, sort of brings an understanding for lay people like us who do not understand the technical jargons of, the MBS report. Let's bring in Dr. Ishao Ango Professor Ishao Ango into this conversation. You've been listening to the guest in the studio, and would like to have your thoughts on, on the MBS. That NBS report that was just released and CPI report that was just, we begin to understand that the downward trend of inflation does not mean that the food items in the market will come down and other commodities that the ordinary average Nigerian uses. So how significant is this for the average Nigerian to understand that though inflation has come down, food items in the market are still expensive, which is the basic needs of man?
Is the reliability, obviously, of these reports, CPI and among others that are coming out from the National Bureau of Statistics. In some years back, the tendency is to say that data released or seen or released by Nigerian authorities and were not reliable. But I think as we are as we are observing of recent, these data are reliable and they are corroborated by other international agencies and bodies. Having said this, for me, I believe it's a reality because, again, they are looking at a basket of products, They are looking at a basket of products. They are looking at various strata in terms of locations also. And therefore, what matters is the aggregate over a period. And going to the market and observing things, everybody will see that there is that gradual, if you like, reduction overall that is taking place. Of course, as has been stated, it doesn't mean that some products have not, or the prices or cost of some products or services did not increase during the period. But nonetheless, there is still, we're far from El Dorado, because it's good, compared to last year, where by this time last year we were talking about 34%. There is significant increase. If you look at it month on month, of course, it's an increase. But compared to last year, it's a significant increase. However, to me, especially considering the fact that the food aspect and agricultural aspect of it contributes significantly to this because, like Dr. Ikongu said, over 60% of income, I don't know whether it's even 60%, maybe a lot more, is actually on food related. And you can see the contribution of food also to the index. But I can say that a lot has happened in the last 1 year that probably tried to cushion the effect of inflation, especially on food and food-related items. And that is the importation of food, especially wheat, corn, rice, that was allowed. That actually assisted in pushing down prices. Now, however, the concern to me is that a temporary solution or is it a permanent solution? That is something that is worthy of consideration. However, certainly there is a lot of improvement from last year to this year. Yes, in terms of, if you look at the African average, inflationary average, or our neighbors, we are still high up there, aside from Burundi, Malawi, and of course the champion, which is Zimbabwe. We are one of the highest. So that is, again, there is still more to do, but I think we are moving in the right direction.
Okay, Prof, we are moving in the right direction, just like you said, that is not yet El Dorado. But I want to ask you, do you think government fiscal policy also has something to do with this downward trend?
Absolutely. Both monetary and fiscal policies have impact directly on inflationary results. Fiscal policy, a lot of policies have been made by government trying to improve revenue, trying to measure or manage the cost and getting the best deal for every transaction. I think the decision, for example, that was made to sell crude oil to local refiners in Naira was significant. It must have contributed. If you remember, despite the fact that we have this Dangote and the others that are producing at NMPC, some of the refineries that have come back to production, yet some people were importing. But because they could not measure up, they could not, because of this advantage that the local refiners have, which is they were buying these products in Naira, those decisions had impact directly on what happened. And on the other side, monetary policies, in terms of interest rates, in terms of managing the amount of cash that is in the hands of the people, through various measures by central bank also contributes significantly. So those are measures that impact always on the inflationary pressure. And I think here, by and large, we are trying to manage them correctly.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Ishao Ango from our Kaduna studio. We'll return to you for more insight into the topic. Let me return to the studio. Mr. Ayo Anthony is seated, the MBS man, I call him. So we're talking about policies now that has helped to curb inflation in Nigeria and bring it to the level that it is now. So do you believe that the current policies we're talking about are sufficient to maintain the downward trend, or are there new strategies that are needed to push it?
It's okay, thank you. Let me talk as an economist. MBS, we are not in the school of analyzing our ways to collect prices, compute inflation, and release the results. But as an economist, yes. You see, doctor said something the other time. Inflation is a function of two major variables, the supply side and the demand side. The major factor responsible for inflation in Nigeria, I've said it in many forums, is the supply side. When supply is curtailed and it's not equal to demand, definitely prices will go up. And inflation that is caused by supply side is not what you can solve in the short run, like demand. Central bank is trying with their monetary policy tools. But the problem I have with monetary policy is this: it has a limitation. In monetary economy, that's what we call liquidity trap. Liquidity trap is a situation or the point whereby interest rate has no impact, or money supply doesn't have effect on interest rate again. Now, central bank has been increasing monetary policy rates, which is the prime interest rate, just to mop up excess money, believing that what is pushing demand upward above supply is excess money.
Flow.
Where is that excess money? In economics, the solution to inflation is a function of the cause of that inflation. So inflation that is induced by excess money is the one monetary policy can solve by mopping up excess money, because excess money chasing fewer goods, price upturn. That is the inflation that monetary policy can solve. Okay. So as you keep on increasing monetary policy rate, as prices coming down, some school of thought say yes, if not because of this excess money being mopped up, the inflation will have been more than this. They are also correct. Another angle is this: central bank are also be involved in supply side sector by intervention. They were doing it before, maybe it wasn't efficient. When you give credit facility at a concessionary rate to farmer, to supplier, definitely you are boosting what? Supply. But the demand side issue we are focusing on, let's collect money from the people, let's mop up money, that may not be a solution to the current inflation in Nigeria.
So what sector of the economy is more vulnerable to this inflationary trend?
All sectors. But when you say which sector, definitely agricultural sector, because of the magnitude of the amount of people spend on food. If we focus more strategy on agriculture to boost supply of food, definitely you will see a drastic reduction in inflation. Another angle is the exchange rate. There is nothing produced in Nigeria today based on our production system that has nothing to do with exchange rates. Most of our raw materials all things being equal, are imported.
Even the one produced in our farms?
The input in the farm, some of them are they not imported? Cost is a function of input as well. So if those inputs have exchange rate elements and the exchange rate is far higher, definitely inflation is there. We call it cost push inflation. So when the cost of production is increasing, every producer will transfer that additional cost to final consumer in form of increase in price. So when the cost structure is not inflationary friendly, it will cause what we call cost push inflation. So government also should look at the cost of production. As I said, that and energy. If you look at our report this April and our special indices, if people don't pay attention to that, MBS, after rebasing, we started computing 3 special indices: energy inflation, goods inflation, services inflation, and imported goods inflation. It's very, very important. In this,
when you say services inflation, does it include rents and all that?
Yes, services are non-tangible goods.
Okay.
Aggregation of all, like consultancy, medical services, teaching, they are all services.
Okay.
If you go to that report, service also is increasing. The inflation rate of service of this month is higher than last month.
Yes.
Another one there is energy, which is the greatest. Energy inflation in Nigeria is on the high side.
Band A, band B.
Thank you very much. It's on the high side.
It is.
So those are the factors. If you want to curb inflation in Nigeria, all this sector I mentioned now, the energy is a great sector you need to touch. Even service. Do you know that services inflation in Nigeria is going up? With all this POS, the new policy of central bank that make POS charges to go up, ATM charges to go up, is another factor that is pushing inflation in the service sector in Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Ayo. Dr. Emeka, how can supply chain disruption be managed, to sort of prevent inflationary spikes?
It's like saying take the goat and tie it to a rope and use the rope and tie the goat. We're still saying the same thing. It is all about volume that is sustainable, that creates value. That's what it is, if you want to disrupt. Okay? I'll just take a very simple, so I can give you a very base understanding of these services, inflation or increase in services charges that Dr. Ayo mentioned. You go to buy an electric bulb for 4,000, and you have an electrician that stays maybe 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers away from you. You'll be needing to pay him 12,000, okay, to come and change that bulb, because you'll be taking 4,000 to come for transportation, 4,000 to go back, plus your 4,000. That's 12, any service. So if you're talking about disrupting something, you have to be very measured, you have to be very tailored, you have to have an understanding of it. And this is where, when you talk about the fiscal policies and what can happen using the fiscal, what's fiscal policy really? It's all about now you looking at that side that can be able to now support, okay, your services sectors, your goods, your works, your what. Now, in generating or propagating or promulgating that policy is not enough if you're going to be disruptive. For us, for instance, now to get 500,000 hectares of land under cultivation. That's the policy of government. But now, in trying to now walk the talk, okay, you now need to move into programs and actions. And this is where, that disruption that you asked me can begin to occur. And what will be the requirements? You'll be requiring to clear that land. I keep saying this, most times I'm given an opportunity. And in clearing that land, you'll be requiring to engage heavy-duty machinery that will be requiring diesel. Okay? Then you will need to also now deal, because 500,000 hectares of land is a large span of land. It will be crisscrossing, maybe states. It will be crisscrossing boundaries. You also be needing to take in, especially in our food belt, okay, which runs maybe from Adamawa, FCT, Kogi, Benue. That's where you have the food belt of Nigeria. And you also have a lot of insurgencies and insurgencies. So the security factor also has to be dealt with. Now, so it is one thing for you to say...
Is that why we're having, for instance, Benue is one of the states that is even worse hit. Is it as a result of this insecurity?
Well, I'm trying to just deal with the fiscal policy. So can I begin to now look at, the challenges you're going to be facing there? For Benue, it's for me a carrot and stick. Okay, I had met somebody who works with the governor, I think DG of one of the agencies, and I said to him, with my understanding of climate change and forced migration, there is nothing. Talk will not stop herds, livestock, from coming into the rainforest region. Nothing will stop it, except we are measured. And can I tell you how measured we can be, my brother? I think that Benue qualifies to become a major hub for forage production. And until we have a program that begins to treat those livestock on forced migration as refugee, both man and beast, and be able to now build integrators that can first and foremost, arrest that fleeing, you might not be able to stop, that forced migration. And of course, with this concomitant conflict, and now it is getting worse because there's now a mixture, of the good, the bad, the ugly. Just like when the Boko Haram started, somebody has said that there are 3 Boko Harams now. There's the spiritual, there's the criminal, and then there's the political. Okay? Now, the spiritual were the people who actually believed, that something had gone wrong and they needed to take back their religion and their community. Then you had the people who now started, playing politics with it. And then you had the people who now, just like you have IPOP where I come from, you also had the people who genuinely felt that they needed to get their land back. And then you had criminals, and you now have politics going into it. I think that also has infiltrated this header farmer problem that we have. So to answer you directly, remember that we're talking about disruptions.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do in this country is that we need to be a little bit more dispassionate and kind in dealing with our national issues, especially those that are existential, that has to do with, destroying our national corporate image. If we had, like I told that DG, Benue State being a hub for the production of forage, commercial forage, and you had, integrators before you had ranches. Now, having this livestock, settled, because you said to people, take your livestock, take it to where? You say people, head your livestock, head it where? Feed your livestock, feed it with what? Keep your livestock, keep it where? Because where they're coming from is a desert. There's no life there anymore. Now, so if you're going to be helping, please, I'm not also encouraging that people go into people's lands and forcibly take it over and kill them. No. But I'm saying that there has to be some deep dive thinking that goes into resolving some of this. Because if you don't...
Yeah, that's why we have this livestock ministry now.
Well, you can
the
have...
The grazing reserves have been,
Yeah. These are all the mistakes. You see, the grazing reserves don't grow grass overnight. And I can tell you, if you have 24 million livestock herds like we have, they'll be requiring, please try to fact check this, a minimum of 500,000 tons of forage, maybe on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So where are you going to be getting that from if you're not having a deliberate program to be able to produce it? And again, remember that ministries, if my understanding is right, are supposed to be regulators. What the ministries are supposed to do is to create that administrative and regulatory oversight that can now begin to encourage the private sector to do this. So if you're going to be doing forage, you're going to be doing forage on a purely commercial basis. And I can tell you for free, I'm involved in it. At one time I had an MOU with ABU Zaria to commercialize forage. They have an institute there called NAPRI that had produced or researched on 37 different species of forage that could be grown commercially. We're not doing any here. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about disruptions, okay, and policies. So if you don't have that bulk, if you don't have that bulge, and let me also digress a little, cassava. A lot of people see cattle eating cassava. Cassava is one staple that keeps cattle healthy, from the mouth and foot disease to so many other things. So there might also be a deliberate attempt for those cassava to be pulled up because of some, medicinal reasons for that cattle. Because a lot of these cattle, where especially now it's raining, they eat a lot of these grasses that make them to begin to purge, that make them very sick. The veterinary services are not very available in those bushes, and they make do with what best they have. But if you had a program where you had cassava in commercial cultivation, you had cassava, and cassava can grow everywhere, including Borno, okay? And then cassava peels, which makes about 55% of the waste from cassava, is actually one of the greatest additives for livestock feed. You compound cassava peels with soya beans, you will be shocked at how large and fat your cattle can get. So these distortions you're talking about, Demola, has to be measured. You don't wish it, you work it. And that's, I think, where we'll have a problem.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Dr. Emeka, thank you so much. Before we go to Professor Isha Ongo in Kaduna, I want to remind our viewers that the phone number for you to contribute to this conversation is on your screen. Please send in your contribution so that we understand that Nigerians are beginning to understand how this inflation thing works. We'll be expecting your response. And let's return to Professor Ishao Ango in Kaduna. He's a professor of finance and entrepreneurship. Professor Dr. Okwengo has explained some of the threats to sustaining inflation rates in Nigeria. Let's get your views on that. And how does insecurity in the agricultural sector affect inflation control efforts by government? Because inflation is coming down, yes, but food is still high, and we all know that insecurity plays a huge role. The hydra-headed insecurity problem we have in this country is playing a huge role, in making sure that Nigerians don't get food the way they used to get it before, and the prices of food can't come down because availability is scarce.
Thank you very much. Let me start from the submission of Dr. Kwengu. I believe, like he said, whatever we want to do in this country, we need to give a deep thought, to every process. A lot of processes, one is affecting the other, it's a flow. And the issue of climate change and the repercussions of that are evident everywhere, in every sector, but particularly in the agricultural sector, and particularly in cattle production and other, if you like, livestock production sectors. So basically, those are issues requiring deep analysis and concerns, and they do not require that political actors just come out and say or make enactments, and without consideration of the reality on ground. Whatever it is continuous crisis, and one crisis breeding another crisis, rather than solving the real problem. I think that is one. Two, the issue of security, yes, it has impacted, and it still impacts on the prices of food commodities everywhere. We have seen places in Zamfara, in Katsina, in parts of Kaduna and Niger probably, where not only have farmers planted some things, but they were not able to harvest them. So basically, those whatever they have produced has gone to nothing. I mean, have become useless because they could not harvest. In some places, you have to negotiate with the bandits, and pay something, to enable you go and collect. Some days back, about a month ago, I was opportune to travel along Birnungwari Kaduna Road, and because the road is now better, as in people can travel and you can move around, and I saw vast expanse of land that are not being cultivated at all. Why? Because people were afraid, of what would be the repercussions. So certainly a major component of security, and especially inflationary pressures on food, will be if there is increased security. And I also watched a video just yesterday about the market in Birnungwari. Well, now that the market is coming back, you know, and the vehicles that are living there with foodstuffs and all that, so that is an indication that security and food availability and lower food prices are connected one with the other. So the more we ensure and guarantee security for the farmers, then naturally will be the lower the prices of foodstuff. And then, of course, food being one of the major components or contributors to this inflation, I think, again, that will reduce the aggregate inflation overall.
Okay, Prof. Thank you. Just let us just take one or two of the responses that have come in. Maybe you have to respond to it. It says, good morning. I am Abbas Abubakar Sahad from Jalingo, Taraba State. Honestly, people are still struggling with high prices and the rising cost of living. You can only truly understand this if you regularly go to the market to make purchases. Forget about what you read in newspaper or see on social media. The government needs to take action to protect vulnerable citizens. Do you have any?
Yeah, I have questions to say. Good morning to the lady and gentlemen in the studio. I want to ask your guest in the studio, what are the main causes of inflation in a country? That's the first question. The second question he has is, say, can allowing the importation of essential commodities and other items into the country cause inflation? Thank you, from Alhaji Garko from Cairo site here in Abuja. Mr. Anthony.
Okay, thank you.
Let's begin with you.
Can importation of essential goods,
commodities and other items into the country cause inflation? That's what it's asking.
It can cause inflation if where the goods are coming from are inflated countries as well. We call it imported inflation. If you import goods from a country that is suffering from inflation.
Countries like?
I don't want to mention. But if you import food from countries that the inflation rate is higher than Nigeria, maybe Ghana, maybe Cote d'Ivoire, and you bring it to Nigeria as a business person, you will like to sell at a price that is above the break-even price, so that you can make what? Profit. So that is it. But if you want to reduce inflation in Nigeria via importation, definitely two variables are involved. The exchange rate. Is the exchange rate favorable? Number two, how much is the price of that thing in the country you are bringing it from? If it's lower than the price in Nigeria at purchasing power parity level, definitely it will solve inflation. Yes. Like the rice we are talking about now, being imported from India and thereabouts. The cost of production maybe there is very, very low. So maybe that's why bringing it to Nigeria, importer can easily sell it below the Nigeria produced price rise. So it can solve inflation, but it depends on two things. What is the price of that item in that country? Then what is the exchange rate talking about? Then the first question again.
What are the main causes of inflation in a country?
We have all discussed the major causes of inflation.
Yes.
Supply rigidity, insecurity, exchange rate higher than the normal, what it ought to be. So these are the factors causing inflation in Nigeria.
Okay, for me, what we need to take into consideration is the after effects of what we call import dependence. It is usually if it is import substitution. But what I think I see here is import dependence, and that's where the danger is. He also has the capacity to wipe out, your capacity to engage people meaningfully. Because this is what got us where we are today. The subcontracting model that we took, in building our industrial process, supported by what they call valorization in economics, is what brought us to where we are today. We call it the import substitution model. And that substitution is supposed to be, you are importing your shortfall. Okay, but what we are doing now is that, and I like that word, essential. The moment you give your essential, what is essential? You must have, you must do, into the hands of another person. It's a very major weapon of emasculation. Anybody who feeds you controls you. Okay, one of the major instruments that they used in ending the Biafran War very quickly was starvation. That's simple. One of the things also used in the German War was starvation. In fact, at one time, cannibalism, got introduced into it. People must eat, so food is very, very critical. And
Even in Gaza, yesterday I was watching on CNN.
Beautiful. Anybody who can't, any country that can't feed itself is not a country that is worth it. But whatever country you want to talk about, I want to see that country that has 85 million hectares of land that is not challenged by anything. No hurricanes, no cyclones, no earthquakes. This is what we have in Nigeria. 84 million. Less than 0.5% under commercial, cultivation. So we don't have any reason as a country, okay, not to be able to produce our essentials if we do the right thing. So it's two things that I think the challenge is. One, everybody thinks that the farmer is that person who carries hoe, his two wives are in front, he's carrying a knife, and then tying one little thing around his waist, and he's walking into the bush. I am a farmer. And I've done something that I've preached. I am harvesting cassava from bags in my farm. As I live here, I am going to my farm to go and plant in those bags my soya beans, dressed as I am. Usually when I go to the farm, I like to wear white dresses. So if we don't change that concept.
Wear white dresses?
Yes, that's what I wear to go, because all I need to do is to wash my hands.
Okay, because...
I don't need to start digging up the soil. Okay, and this is what these guys who are supplying these things to us are doing. And this is what we are trying to, show clearly. 2 years ago, we went through this ICRC fake process, which is very, very hard to get a fake approval to start growing cassava all over Nigeria. Today, that project hasn't taken off. But it's not stopping us from showing to people that this can be done. You can plant these yams in your house. Dr. Oju can have some, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags. You can have any, you can have some. And then we begin to now build this bulge, because remember that the critical factor is that your midstream industries cannot operate except they have the minimum volumes. So that 1 kg produced by 10,000 people gives you 10,000 kg that can be able to support a cottage industry to now begin to process. Then the cost of energy, the cost of storage, the cost of packaging is there. You now have these things, saved over a period of time. Like I said, the major challenge we have is that we are still dealing with food production at the level of, that subsistence farmer. We are not thinking large. We are not thinking our population, okay, as being very, very critical to, getting us to be food secure. So I'm totally against, no matter how good it sounds. Ukraine sits on about 54 million hectares of land, the whole of Ukraine, if I get my statistics right, and they are supplying the whole world with grains, including dear Nigeria. The way you come from, that belt, the Borno belt you come from, can grow red wheat, which is one of the best, organic wheats in the world.
Yes, Lectured Research Institute were doing it before insurgency came.
So why should I speak anymore?
Yeah.
Look at Kaduna. From here to Kaduna is 240 kilometers of flat land. The Gurara water project is on that express road. So that means we can have those 200 hectares of land at both sides of the road in cultivation. So we need to do some deep thinking.
Okay, we need to do some deep thinking. Okay, Dr. Kengu, thank you very much for your contribution there. We'll call for a break now. We're still discussing sustaining the downward trend of inflation, and we want to encourage our viewers to send your suggestions, send your questions to us on the number displayed on your screen. We'll take a break. The conversation continues after. Stay with us.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features: the black shield, stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The two white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
When we think about the digital economy, you can see it as the marketplace for digital goods and services. And increasingly, it's becoming a force to reckon with and an incredible contributor to economic growth, because we've seen the growth in technology and digital platforms. Technology has it really permeated every aspect of life and business, the way we live, the way we work. And when we talk about the digital economy, we're really talking about leveraging technology and digital platforms in a powerful way to drive growth, to drive solutions to problems, to drive applications, and to provide services.
The digital economy is something that has the potential to help Nigeria leapfrog a lot of its development challenges, right? Because think about what the mobile phone did for Nigeria years ago. That is the potential we have for digital, because it has a way of reducing the barriers to innovation. It has a way of being able to transform service delivery, whether it's government's delivery of services or whether it's services in the health system, where people can use digital to actually be able to see their patients better. But it takes a lot to realize that potential of digital. The first thing is like every other thing, there's an infrastructure you have to build to be able to make sure that digital economy can thrive. Think of something like, capturing that happens in Nigeria, right? Where you capture, people's biometric when they go for a driver's license, when they go for passports, and each of those are separate things. Can we imagine a system where we're able to streamline that and actually have a platform that exchange biometric information that makes it easier for people to access passports, easier for people to register to vote. But today it's very tough, right? But those are basic infrastructure that needs to be invested in. A lot of it is through government and private sector collaborations to make it happen.
If we're looking to accelerate growth in the Nigerian space, we really need to look at enabling the digital economy. That includes providing digital infrastructure, connectivity, because that's the highway, like the highway that everything rides on. We need to think about digital capacity building in terms of the suppliers to the economy and also the consumers within the economy. So a robust digital literacy initiative. The good thing about technology is that, one, it helps you to transcend boundaries. Two, it creates a level playing field, really, because if you create a solution, it's a technology-based solution that is applicable in this environment, that same technology can be applicable, exported to other environments. And, technology platforms also help drive collaboration, right? When we're thinking about innovation, when we're thinking about business growth, collaboration is an important part of that. So when we think about the impacts with the rest of the world, we find that actually technology platforms are giving us an opportunity to engage more actively, to collaborate, to create partnerships, to even export our knowledge and services for people to engage with all the great things I'm talking about technology and digital platforms. They need access, internet access, broadband access. So we need to make sure that access is more available and affordable for the average user.
The most important thing is to think about where you want to go as a country and actually what type of policies are going to help get you there. There are examples of countries who've been able to transform using digital, for example. There are very clear things those countries did to be able to make it happen. So a lot of this, the pathway to be able to solve these problems are not mysterious, right? It takes courage of the policymakers to be able to understudy some of these things and bring in the policies that work to be able to help them.
Welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. And just a reminder, please send in your views to join the conversation, and let's get the fact that you understand what we are discussing. And the number that you send SMS to WhatsApp only, no calls please, is 081 69 688 126. I'll take it again, 081 69 688 126. Let's get your views. Now let's go to our Kaduna studio where Professor Ishao Ango is seated, and as the program begins to wind down, I would like you to talk about, as a financial analyst, expert, what structural reforms are essential to permanently control inflation in Nigeria. Maybe not permanently, but to constantly sustain it. What structural reforms do we need to do that?
I will attempt to marry this with the questions previously asked, and especially the contributions of Dr. Ekwengu. Maybe there are two farmers here. I'm a farmer too, so I believe we have something to contribute on this regard. Now, the aspect about part of the reason why we have this lower compared to last year's inflation, I said it earlier, was because of the importation. There was a window created which said they were going to allow for 150 days of importation, of certain essential goods and services. I mean, goods actually, and especially foodstuffs. And that was done. And I think to some extent, I think it was abused somewhat. It reduced the prices, quite all right. But the tendency is that it is now going to harm, and in fact, it has done some harm to the future production of some of these commodities. Like I said, I come from a zone that is very active in production of corn, maize, and other things, and rice. I see this year, farmers are not going into that. Most farmers are avoiding that. Why? Because these things were dumped. If you remember, there was discussion about imported inflation by Dr. Ola. Now, in our own case, it's dumping that is taking place, more or less. Goods that are produced at lower prices in certain climes, in India, in Thailand, for example, rice, now that were subsidized, now are being imported into Nigeria. Farmers in Nigeria are not in any way subsidized because of advices, again, of various multinational agencies. So in the process, what has happened is that farmers now have goods that they could not sell because the market will not take it. So in a while we have really solved a problem in the short term, we have created a larger problem in the long term. So what we need to do, coming back to your question, is that if agricultural aspect of it is a major component of inflation, then what we need to do is to ensure that we provide support to farmers. We provide inputs, if you like, rather than, doing anything, let's subsidize the prices of these inputs. The cost of fertilizer today is about 50,000 naira. The cost of a bag of maize is about 40,000 naira. So you can imagine what that means, I mean, what is the motivation for a farmer to want to go and produce maize? So are we now going to say that we want to be dependent on other people to feed us? We have succeeded in the last few years, during the last administration, in reversing our dependence on rice, which is the major staple in Nigeria, to the extent that virtually 90% or 90-something% of all the rice we were consuming were produced locally. So what we need to do is to have long-term solutions, like the decision or the position of government to say local refiners should be buying crude oil in Naira was a very good one. So the same way, what we need to do is to encourage agriculture to ensure that we feed ourselves. whatever we need to do to support these farmers, to ensure the real farmers, not the political farmers, get the support, we need to do it. I remember growing up as a child that in my village there were some agri experts who were operating and providing some kind of services to farmers, guiding farmers. These people are no longer there. They are not there. Researches have been done in universities that are not being implemented at the local level. You know, the farmers don't have the best of these researches. Even the seed companies we have, for example, who are producing some of these inputs, there is no standard. Even though we have bodies, we have regulators who are supposed to ensure that this is done, this has not been done. So I think in the long run, that is one of the things that need to be done. Another thing that we need to do, of course, in taming inflation, is to ensure that when we're introducing what we call reforms in the economy, we don't bring them in quick succession, and each of them is an increase. You know, when, for example, the exchange rate was matched, it brought an increase. Subsidy was removed, it brought an increase. When the issue of revision of prices of power, energy came in, it was another increase. Then again, the service providers in terms of telephone operators and all that also increased. You know, so many things came in, and I think that is what caused the inflation to be high, especially up to last year. So what we need is some stability. We need to be consistent, and we need to take advantage of the African Free Trade Agreement. And to do that, our inflationary rate must somehow be managed such that it is not too high compared to our neighbors. Inflation rate today in Benin, in Cameroon, in Niger is less than 1%. I mean, that was what I checked just last night. So, and if we are at 23% and it's still better than last year, I think we need to do a lot more. And most importantly, our body language, the body language of government and the body language of regulators should be that of stability and stabilization. And I think if we do that, that will be a long way to ensure that probably we tame this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I still want to stay with you because I have a question that I want you to also respond to. And this one says, what indicators should policymakers monitor to predict potential inflationary trends? This is from Patrick Alade, Abuja. He said, what indicators should policymakers monitor to predict potential inflationary trends?
Like has been stated earlier also, again, either it's demand pulled or cost push. So indicators are clear when you have, so for example, issues of supply gap, then wherever there is a supply gap, you know there is going to be a major problem. So those gaps have to be closed. Last year, when the prices were high, government said release 46,000, I think, or 49,000 tons. And we know that in the National Reserve there wasn't anything left. I mean, so basically building reserves, ensuring that we build a reasonable reserve, just like any serious country will do, will help, you know, to ensure that we stabilize. So reducing these gaps will help. You know, government and everybody should monitor, you know, wherever there is a supply problem, I think that need to be closed.
Thank you very much, Prof. The supply problem gap should be closed.
Should be closed.
You have a question for Dr. Ayo?
Yeah, Dr. Ayo, I have a question, but I think it has been addressed, but maybe he really wants to, maybe he was not watching the program at the beginning. Greg from Abuja says, what is the impact of insecurity in escalating or reducing the inflationary trend in Nigeria?
The impact is statistically significant. Okay. So if you don't curb insecurity, definitely farm produce will not be high to reduce the supply pressure. So the best thing is to curb insecurity so that farmers can go to farm, assess their farm produce, and bring to the market.
Okay, what is your inflation forecast for the next 12 to 18 months? That is, if you have an idea of how it's going to be, let's have your forecast.
In MBS, we don't build model.
Okay.
We just go out to collect the actual and give you the actual
data.
But as an economist, if all the variables that determine the current inflationary figure continues, when I say variable, government expenditure, the level of monetary policy rate, the current relative stability in exchange rate, the relative insecurity now, if all these variables continue like this, inflation should be moderating gradually, all things being equal. And it's also a function of the decision of central bank today. The Monetary Policy Committee will be meeting today. We don't know how those parameters, either they will be increased or held constant. So the inflation figure is also depending on the decision of monetary authority.
On the basis points that will come out of the meeting.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Dr. Okengo. I have this question from Yusuf Abdul from Zaria. It says significant amount of agricultural produce are lost to waste. Is it so difficult for government at all levels to support food storage and preservation through SMEs, especially for perishable food items like fruits and vegetables?
Well, unfortunately, that's really not the business of government, as it were. Where government comes into that is to produce or provide that enabling environment. That's where you now build that circle, that synergy, okay, of aggregating your small, mid, large, and then tying them into your midstream, okay, tying them into those processors that now begin to now take it, into the market. And this is where after should come. Now, how government can encourage this to happen, Yusuf, is for them to reintroduce whatever it is they call it, some support systems or support mechanisms, for this to happen. Call it subsidy, call it under recovery, call it grants, but it wouldn't be a loan. Because the moment you make it a loan, then the challenge is how do you pay back this money? But if it is something that you need to support and it's called patient capital, all right, when you introduce this patient capital, it now helps you to be able to now build, this structure, this pyramid, so that the people at that base who are contributing the 1 kg to 2 kg are captured. Those that can take it to 10 kg are captured. Just like in the days you had the marketing boards or the produce agents. It was something, similar. So it can be done, but it's not just going to be done by government at all levels. It is going to be supported by government at all levels and be done by the private sector. But again, I think it's important, maybe at this juncture, we also talk about this continuity in government policies, because it's another thing, we seem to be glancing over. We are dealing with the Nigerian government, okay, maybe what we call the Tinubu administration, but what might happen might be the Tinubu style of governance. Nothing has changed in our legal frameworks of how government business is conducted. So what that means is that decisions that were taken 10, 15 years ago, okay, are still binding on government, especially when they were taken and entered into using legal instruments. So for my opinion would be that there might be need, especially for us to look at the issue. I've looked at MBS. We should also look at ICRC. Because ICRC is another very critical government agency that is doing a lot of work, okay, to be able to build the synergy that Yusuf, I'm trying to explain to Yusuf. Now, ICRC, from my last check, in the last 8 years or so, had entered or approved based on their no objection, over 100 and something, partnerships, agreement, fake approvals have been issued that are creating either concessions or private, public partnerships. I think we should take a little, look into those things. Now, do they end with the last administration? If this administration now issues, those fake approvals and they leave, is that the end of that program? Should it be the end of that program? And if the answer is no, what role does ICRC play in ensuring that wherever they have a no objection, that no objection is followed through? How are they able to take it to the next administration? And how do we now, implement it as a continuous, program? I think that will also be very, very critical for us to build this, deep thinking that all of us seem to be, agreed upon.
Yes, you know, like you said, deep thinking. Yes. Everybody has to think deep to find solutions to whatever is happening in this country so that the average Nigerian can be able to understand and enjoy their lives. Now, let's go to Professor Ishao Ango in Kaduna, talking about resilience, you know, against external shocks that often reverse inflation gains like oil price swings, currency fluctuations that continue to hit our country, and then the inflation rates continue to go up. How can we as a nation build resilience against these external shocks?
I think what we need for this country, given our population, is to do what others have done you know, with their populations. The largest population, the countries with the largest populations are India and China, for example. And you know, remember this Malthusian theory in economics, which seems to say that when you have so much population, it tends to be a negative thing. But some of these countries are turning it into something else. You know, they are using their population to an advantage. And I think we have that vantage position, you know, considering our position as the largest population in Africa, and perhaps also the largest black nation in the world. Given our resource base, given our land mass, given everything we have, what we need is to think and, you know, just, you know, prepare ourselves, not just for one regime, you know, prepare ourselves to be the manufacturing hub, for example, you know, of West Africa, of Africa, you know, just like China became, and just like India is becoming an ICT, you know, hub globally, and the best probably in that regard. I mean, we can also be. So, because Nigerians are excelling everywhere, we need to think strategically. We need to insulate ourselves in a way that, you know, for certain things, you know, we can dominate. We can truly dominate the African continent to begin with. I think that's where to start. And we have to, first of all, even look at our own market and try to satisfy our own market, you know, as we are also exporting and taking advantage of the African free trade arrangement. So I think that is where it is. It is something beyond just one regime. And it's not just a matter of this president is doing that, when the next president comes, you condemn whatever the other person has done. Let us plan that way. And I think one major way we can do that is to ensure that our infrastructure, we get it right. And I think that is where we're failing, especially with energy infrastructure. So it's a lot of work, and I hope that we can do a giant leap, you know, in that regard, and then be a major producer, you know, a major manufacturer for the African market to begin with.
Much, Prof, for your parting shots there. We need to think strategically. Finally, let's just bring in Dr. Ayo. Maybe you just respond to this in just 1 minute. This one says, why are policymakers not adopting the methodology of value engineering? It said value engineering is one proven means of achieving cost effectiveness and profit maximization without necessarily increasing prices of goods or services in the face of persistent inflation. To sustain the downward trend of inflation, value engineering is quite important.
Thank you. You see, prices in an economy is a function of cost. And if cost is not curtailed deliberately via government policy, like the issue of subsidy, concessionary loan, all these things are measures that government can use to reduce cost of production. Okay. If these measures are not put in place deliberately and cost of production is allowed to keep on going up, prices must adjust simultaneously to increase in cost of production, because profit orientation cannot be put down for private sector, which is their main objective.
Okay, your final thoughts.
I think Dr. Ju has said it all. We and Prof had capped it by saying that what we require is some deep thinking. What our nation requires right now is for us to all climb out of the box and then begin to do things a little differently. A lot of synergies has to be built now. A lot of handshakes have to be introduced, especially between donor agencies, the private sector, the subnationals, and then the national government. Nigeria has to be thought as a whole. We must create that national volume that we all now need to begin to work towards to achieve and then to sustain.
It's all about collective efforts. Dr. Emeka Okengo, development expert. As always, a delight to have you in the studio.
Pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. Dr. Ayo Anthony, Head, Prices Division, National Bureau of Statistics. We hope to get better inflation rates by next month, I hope.
Hopefully. Thank you for having me.
And from our guest in our Kaduna studio, Professor Ishao Angu, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Kaduna State University. Thank you so much, as usual, for your insight into the topic we just discussed. Thank you. We appreciate you, as always.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks so much for your time. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Ademola Adeye. Thanks for joining us. Join us again tomorrow for another interesting episode.